When you focus on yourself and stay silent, you stop chasing approval and start building power. Silence sharpens your thinking. Solitude reveals your direction. While others waste energy reacting to noise, you rise quietly, becoming stronger, clearer, and more dangerous. You grow in silence, you win in silence. The loudest victories are born in the quietest rooms. In a few moments, I will teach you how to focus on yourself and stay silent to build strength, clarity, and control. When you work in silence, you command respect without demanding it. You've seen it. The loudest person in the room is rarely the one others trust. The one who boasts, brags, and tells everyone what they plan to do often does nothing. But the quiet one, the one who just shows up and builds, that's the person others quietly start watching, not because of what they say, but because of what they become. Silence is your power, not because words are weak, but because results speak louder. When you stop telling people your every move, you stop inviting their doubt, their delay, and their distractions, you take full command of your energy. But why does silence matter so much? Because in silence, your plans grow roots. Without noise, you hear your own intuition clearly. You protect your dreams from early judgment, even from your own fear. A goal shared too early can die in the hands of someone who doesn't see what you see. So how do you begin? By making your progress private. You rise earlier and tell no one. You stay late and expect no praise. You sharpen your mind like a blade, not to show off, but to be ready. You stop proving and start improving. Now picture this. Two workers on a field. One yells about the seeds he's going to plant. The other bends his back, digs in silence, and sows without saying a word. Months later, whose crop do you notice? The one who made noise or the one who made progress? Are you building quietly or broadcasting blindly? Do you let your silence grow strength, or are you still waiting for applause to begin? Respect isn't something you demand. It's something you attract. By doing the work when no one's watching and doing it right. When your results arrive, they'll announce you better than words ever could. Your power increases the moment you stop explaining yourself. You don't owe an explanation for your ambition. You don't have to justify why you train harder, aim higher, or say no to mediocrity. The more you explain yourself, the more you dilute your strength. Because those who misunderstand you aren't owed your energy, they're just evidence that you're rising. The truth is, explaining weakens intention. Every time you break your path into pieces for someone who doesn't see your vision, you rob yourself of the focus to finish the mission. Some won't understand you, not because you're wrong, but because they've chosen comfort over growth. You must not follow them. But why does silence serve you better? Because it draws a line. It says, I know what I'm doing, and I don't need your approval to do it. That kind of inner clarity shakes the world without shouting. You stop explaining by replacing explanation with execution. You wake up and act. You reject conversations that serve no purpose. You stop defending your path and simply walk it. You let your outcomes, not your words, make your case. Picture a young apprentice in a blacksmith shop. One talks all day about becoming a master. The other listens, learns, strikes metal, and builds. Months later, who do you trust to forge your sword? Are you still trying to convince others you're serious? Or are you letting your seriousness do the talking? You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to understand yourself so deeply that no outside opinion can shake your resolve. That's when your power begins, when you stop explaining and start becoming. Growth begins the moment you withdraw from the noise. There's a kind of noise that drowns dreams. Gossip, jealousy, chatter from people who aren't doing anything, but have an opinion about everything. And if you're not careful, that noise becomes your environment. Then it becomes your mindset. Then it becomes your life. Silence isn't escape, it's elevation. When you withdraw from the noise, you don't become less social. You become more sovereign. You start thinking clearly. You start choosing what deserves your attention instead of reacting to what's loudest. But why does stepping away matter? Because the world rewards clarity, and clarity is born in silence. Most people can't hear themselves think. They're too busy absorbing everyone else's fears. And if you absorb fear, you'll act in fear. But if you protect your silence, you'll plant boldness. So how do you withdraw? You guard your time like it's gold. You avoid rooms where ambition is mocked. You spend evenings reflecting instead of reacting. You study in private, improve in secret, and sharpen your discipline when no one's clapping. Now imagine this. Two warriors are preparing for battle. One is in the crowd, shouting, drinking, laughing. The other is alone, training in a cave, quiet, focused. When the fight begins, which one do you trust to win? Are you living in your cave or still caught in the crowd? Do you choose silence to grow or noise to be seen? The silence you keep will one day shout on your behalf. Withdraw from the noise and you'll find the signal. Withdraw from the crowd and you'll meet your purpose. You don't need permission to rise. You need conviction. Nobody is coming to crown you. Nobody is going to hand you your worth. You must rise on your own terms. And when you do, you'll notice something. Those who doubted you will stay silent, and those who believed will already be walking beside you. But people wait. They wait for applause, for approval, for a moment that feels just right. They wait for someone to say, "You're ready." But readiness isn't granted. It's chosen. Why do people hesitate? Because they fear judgment. They're afraid of stepping ahead without a chorus cheering for them. But those who win, they walk forward anyway. Not because they're fearless, but because their conviction is louder than their doubt. You begin without approval by deciding your value privately. You set your standards high and follow them whether anyone's looking or not. You take small steps with absolute certainty, and every time you act despite fear, you strengthen your inner authority. Picture a sculptor chipping away at a stone. No one believes it'll be anything, but the sculptor sees what it will become. He doesn't argue, he chisels, until one day others gather around, not to doubt, but to admire. Are you still waiting for the crowd, or are you building in solitude? Do you act like you're already worthy, or do you shrink when nobody validates you? Stop waiting. You don't need a spotlight to begin. You need resolve. When your conviction becomes greater than your need for permission, nothing can stop you from rising. The less you speak, the more you hear. What matters most, people fear silence. They rush to fill it with words, quick thoughts, scattered opinions, casual gossip, endless talk about dreams they've never built. They don't realize that every unnecessary word they utter drains power from their presence. But you must do the opposite, because when you speak less, you gather strength. You learn, you observe, you prepare. You learn nothing while you're talking. You only reaffirm what you already know. But when you're quiet, truly quiet, you open a door into others, into the situation, into yourself. And through that door, wisdom walks in. The person who listens sees what others don't. They catch shifts in tone, hesitations in voice, tensions behind smiles. They don't just hear words, they hear intent, and that gives them an advantage, because the world isn't ruled by the loud, it's ruled by the aware. Most people speak out of discomfort. Silence feels like a spotlight, so they start performing, but power doesn't perform. Power waits, power watches, and then, only when the moment demands it, power speaks. Why is silence more powerful than noise? Because it creates space. Space for observation, space for clarity, space for decisions that aren't rushed but refined. In a world obsessed with speed and noise, silence is a form of rebellion and mastery. Think of great generals, wise elders, sharp negotiators. They don't babble, they wait, they listen, they speak last, and when they do, the room shifts. People lean in. Why? Because when you speak less, your words carry weight. Your voice becomes something rare. And in a noisy world, rarity commands attention. This isn't about being passive. It's about choosing your moment. It's about developing the discipline to observe first. You learn to sit with a conversation with tension, with ambiguity, without needing to fix it with words. You train your mind to watch instead of react, to understand instead of assume. Imagine this. Two people walk into a boardroom. One dominates the room, talking endlessly. The other listens, silently analyzing. When the chatter fades and the quiet one finally speaks, everyone listens. Not because of volume, but because of value. Which one are you becoming? When you speak, do your words move the room or just fill time? Do you speak to offer insight or because you're uncomfortable with silence? The goal is not to be mute, it's to be measured, to make your voice mean something. Because once people realize that when you speak it matters, they listen before you even open your mouth. So train yourself. In every conversation, resist the urge to rush in. Instead, lean back, observe, let others reveal their minds. Use silence like a weapon, like a tool, like a throne. And when you do speak, let your words land like a hammer. Because in the quiet between your words, that's where your real power lives. You are meant to be quietly dangerous. There's a kind of strength that doesn't need applause. It doesn't show up to be seen. It shows up to win. This kind of strength doesn't broadcast itself. It doesn't beat its chest or demand attention. It simply is. It watches. It waits. It sharpens in the background while the world gets distracted by noise. And when it decides to move, it moves with such clarity, such precision, that nothing can stand in its way. That's the kind of person you must become. The world has made noise its currency, but you deal in depth. You understand that certainty isn't born in crowds. It's born in solitude, in the early hours, in the late nights, in those moments when no one is watching and every choice you make is for your future self, not for applause. That's where confidence grows, not in volume, but in clarity, not in being seen, but in knowing who you are. You become quietly dangerous by doing what others avoid. You reject distraction. You cut off shallow talk. You show up to your routine like it's sacred. You master the unglamorous fundamentals while others hop from trend to trend. Every step you take is deliberate. Even your stillness has direction. Think of the tiger in the jungle. It doesn't chase noise. It doesn't seek attention. It crouches low. It blends into silence. It studies. But when it moves, every creature around it feels it. That's not performance. That's presence. You must build yourself into that kind of presence. Are you filling your days with movement that means nothing, or sharpening your edge in ways no one can see? Are your actions rooted in purpose, or are they simply performances for validation? Power doesn't come from volume, it comes from discipline, from precision, from patience, from the quiet commitment to grow when no one claps and no one cares. That's where your weapon is forged. That's where your authority is born. And when you show up, not with noise, but with undeniable mastery, people shift. Rooms adjust, eyes turn. Not because you ask for attention, but because your silence says more than their speeches ever could. You must become the one they never saw coming. The one who doesn't shout but strikes. The one who doesn't announce but arrives. The one whose presence changes the temperature of the room. Without a word, be quiet, be sharp. Be dangerous. Your progress multiplies when you stop competing and start creating. Most people wake up each day inside a race they never agreed to run. They don't question it, they just start moving. They look left, they look right, measuring how fast others are going, how far others have come. They match their pace to strangers. They copy the routines, the strategies, even the dreams of people they've never met. Because they're afraid of falling behind. But behind what? Behind whom? That's the trap. The race was never yours to begin with. The goal was never to outrun others. The goal was to build something only you could bring into this world. A vision that lives inside you, not in someone else's shadow. And the moment you realize that, everything changes. Your silence becomes sacred. You stop racing. You stop chasing. You listen. You find your rhythm, your tempo, your mission. You stop trying to win a game designed by others and start designing your own. This shift is more than mental, it's spiritual. Because comparison is noise, loud, constant, draining. It drowns out your own voice. It makes you doubt your pace, your progress, your purpose. Comparison says, you're behind. Creation says, you're becoming. And becoming takes time. It takes presence. It takes faith in something deeper than performance, something truer than validation. Creation is born in stillness, not in the applause, not in the scrolling, not in the noise. It happens when you withdraw from the race, when you stop staring at what everyone else is doing and return to your own hands, your own ideas, your own raw material. You craft, you shape, you feel. You don't rush it, you don't explain it, you express it. That's where greatness lives, not in speed, but in depth. Picture an inventor alone in his dimly lit workshop. The world moves fast outside his door, but he doesn't look up. He's focused. He's sweating. He's adjusting tiny gears, drawing blueprints, testing again and again. He's not checking to see how far along his neighbor is. He's not worried about a deadline someone else set. He's creating. And when he finally steps out, he doesn't show something borrowed. He unveils something original, something only he could have made. That's what your life should feel like. Are you still running a race that belongs to someone else? Still haunted by the pace of people who aren't even on your path? Or have you chosen to slow down, go inward, and build? This world doesn't need another replica. It needs you. Fully, deeply, silently, deliberately you. Withdraw from the crowd, silence the noise, refuse to compete for things that don't fulfill you. Instead, pour your time and soul into the work that does. Pour it into the thing that only you understand right now. Let it evolve. Let it mature in private. Let it breathe. Because the world doesn't need more noise, it needs truth. And truth takes time to build. So stop running, start creating. Craft something so real, so rare, that when the world finally sees it, it stops, it listens, and it remembers. Not because you were the fastest, but because you were the only one who built what you built. That's how you win a race you were never meant to run, by refusing to run it at all, and by creating something no one else can. Every great transformation happens in silence. First, before anything magnificent is seen, it must first survive the dark. Before a tree ever greets the sun, it struggles silently beneath the soil, pushing against earth, finding its strength, anchoring roots it will one day need to withstand storms. That quiet phase, invisible to the eye, is everything. And yet most people fear it. They rush to bloom before they've built a foundation. They crave recognition before they've earned resilience. But real transformation, it begins in silence. It requires disappearance before it delivers power. So you must understand this. Before you become someone strong, grounded, and unshakable, you will pass through a season where no one notices you, no one praises your effort, no one sees your work. That season isn't punishment, it's preparation. It is sacred. It is the womb of your becoming, and only the disciplined survive it. From the outside, it may look like nothing's happening. You may doubt yourself. Others might question you. But beneath that stillness, change is unfolding. Muscles are forming in the mind. Habits are hardening into steel. Ideas are being sculpted with fire and solitude. Roots are wrapping deeper into the ground, creating strength that will one day hold up the weight of your future. That strength cannot be rushed. It must be earned in private. Why must this phase be silent? Because transformation is fragile. It's filled with discomfort, uncertainty, fatigue, self-doubt. And if you expose it too early, the world will try to shrink it. People, even with good intentions, project their fears onto what they don't understand. They'll tell you to be realistic. They'll tell you to slow down. They'll tell you to choose something safer. And if you're not careful, their fear will become yours. Their limits will poison your vision. That's why you keep it sacred. You protect your transformation by staying hidden until the time is right. You show up daily, not for praise, but for purpose. You build without telling anyone. You sacrifice without seeking sympathy. You endure setbacks without explaining them. Every repetition becomes a layer of strength. Every quiet day stacks on the last until your effort becomes who you are. You don't talk about the grind, you become it. Think of the butterfly in its cocoon. From the outside, it looks dead, motionless, forgotten. But inside, a miracle is taking place. A creature is shedding its old form, rearranging itself at the cellular level. No cameras, no applause, only process. And then, one day, it breaks free. Not with noise, but with wings. It flies, not because someone pushed it, not because it was validated, but because it stayed the course in silence. Can you do the same? Can you remain faithful to your growth when no one is cheering? Can you walk through the long, dull days without quitting, without announcing, without proving? You must resist the urge to reveal what isn't ready. The world doesn't need a sneak peek of your potential. It needs the person you become after the silence, not during it. So stay in the shadows. Keep planting, keep pushing, keep sharpening. When the time comes, you won't have to introduce yourself. Your presence will say everything. Because when true transformation is complete, it doesn't ask for attention, it demands it. Silence builds discipline, and discipline builds everything. Every great life is not built on excitement. It's not carved from grand ideas or bursts of inspiration. It's forged quietly, consistently, through discipline. Not the kind people praise in public, but the kind that happens in silence, when no one sees you, when no one applauds, when you choose to do what needs to be done because it must be done. That is where the foundation is laid, and that foundation doesn't begin in movement. It begins in stillness, in silence. When you sit with yourself, stripped of distractions, stripped of validation, you begin to hear things most people spend their lives running from. You hear your own excuses, your unfinished promises, the gap between who you are and who you could be. That confrontation is not comfortable, but it is sacred. It is necessary, because within that discomfort lives your compass, your calling, your first step toward mastery. Why is silence so essential to discipline? Because silence reveals truth, and truth demands action. When there is no noise to hide behind, no crowd to impress, you meet the raw, unfiltered reality of your life. You see clearly what must change, and you can either turn away or begin. Discipline is born in that beginning, not when it's easy, not when it feels good, but when everything in you would rather delay, distract, or detour, and you still show up. You still do the work. That is how you build the edge, not by waiting for motivation, but by acting before it shows up, by setting a standard and keeping it, even when no one's watching. The bricklayer doesn't build a fortress in one day. He lays a single stone, then another, day after day, rain or shine, no cameras, no crowd, no fireworks, just hands on stone, sweat on skin, faith in the process. And in time, what once looked like nothing becomes impenetrable, not because he rushed, but because he refused to quit. That is discipline. Quiet, slow, deliberate effort that compounds until greatness is inevitable. You don't need more plans. You don't need more talk. You need repeatable action. You need to train your mind to do what's right, especially when it's hard. You need to say no to comfort when comfort tries to seduce you. You need to become someone who keeps promises to themselves, not because someone is watching, but because you are. This kind of power isn't loud. It doesn't brag. It doesn't It moves silently, with intent, with conviction, with unshakable resolve, because real discipline doesn't announce itself. It shows up. It sharpens in the dark. And when it's needed, it performs. So ask yourself, are you waiting for motivation to move, or have you decided to become reliable? Are you addicted to noise, to energy, to hype, to validation? Or can you operate in complete silence, knowing what you're building matters, even if no one sees it? Because here's the truth. Most people start, very few stay. Most speak of what they'll do. Few do it quietly, daily, relentlessly. But those who do, those who lay the brick, those who face the silence, those who keep showing up when the world stops clapping, they become dangerous.